Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of Representative Siscomani's Bill H.R. 1669 as amended. The bill would enhance the Vet Tech program at the Department of Veterans Affairs. The Vet Tech pilot program was co-authored by Speaker McCarthy and Congressman Rakana in the Forever GI Bill in 2017. Now, this program provides post-9/11 GI Bill-style benefits to veterans so they can attend short-term training that leads to jobs in the information technology sector. The education and employment program has been a wildly successful program. It has helped thousands of veterans not only find a job, but a career and a promising future in the technology sector. This program is an example of government programs that truly works for our veterans. Vet Tech has an 80% graduation rate, a 62% employment rate, and an average salary of $65,000 a year. Veterans using this program are going into careers with the best tech companies in the world. The reason this program works well, as it has, I think, is that the schools only receive the full amount of the tuition and fees when the student get a job in the tech industry. Now, this level of accountability is honestly something I think we should be looking at all over federal government programs. Thousands of veterans achieving their career of their dreams has proven to me that this is time for an expansion of Vet Tech. Now, Representative Siscomani, bill, it makes it important changes to the pilot program to make it even stronger so that it can continue to help even more veterans find their American dream. Improving Vet Tech program has the full support of the VA and many veteran service organizations. 3 weeks ago, Vet Tech providers told us that the program had run out of funds and they are no longer allowed to accept new students. Over 2,500 students, veterans, will miss out on the chance for a better career this year if Congress is unable to fix this problem. It goes without saying that the time is short and the need to help our veterans continues that we should be focusing on this training. Even with recorded high inflation and soaring interest rates because of the Biden administration, veterans using this program have shown that they can still achieve high-paying jobs. Representative Siscomani bill, as amended, also includes several other bipartisan bills, including General Jack Burkman's bill, H.R. 234, which would allow survivors of the veterans to receive the burial allowance benefits if their loved one passes away at home while receiving VA hospice care rather than in a VA facility. Representative Arrington's bill, H.R. 1169, which would also allow veterans to receive their GI Bill electronic notifications virtually. Representative Obernolte's bill, H.R. 746, which would include non-degreed pilot programs into the Veterans Readiness and Employment Program. Representative Van Orden's bill, H.R. 1798, which would protect the spouses of service members from GI Bill debt. And Representative Kagan's bill, H.R. 1635, which will eliminate a nearly 70-year-old rule that limits the GI Bill payment that survivors and dependents receive in the Philippines. With the inclusion of these bills in H.R. 1669, we would make great improvements in how our veterans can use the GI Bill benefits. I would like to thank the Student Veterans of America, Veterans of Foreign War, the American Legion, the Vet Tech Working Group, the Disabled American Veterans for supporting the proposed legislation today, and I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 1669 as amended. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Illinois reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Is recognized.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak on the Vet Tech Authorization Act of 2023 as amended. In 2020, when our country experienced record unemployment, Vet Tech was a bright spot of veteran employment. To date, nearly 5,000 veterans have found employment from the program, at a salary of over $65,000 a year. Today, veterans are employed at record high levels. The Biden economy has brought veteran unemployment to the lowest level ever on record. Let me say that again. The Biden economy has brought veteran unemployment to the lowest level ever on record. The legislation before us adds 5 more years to the VET-TEC program, providing VA an additional $337 million to get more veterans hired in the high technology field. This program was created by Speaker McCarthy in the Forever GI Bill, and I respect the fact that it is a big priority for the Speaker and my friend Chairman Bolster. Now, while I support the legislation, I wish to share my concern about moving a bill with such a large cost when we have so many provisions awaiting action by this Congress. The $413 million price tag of this bill dwarfs the costs of many of the bills we must pass to address veteran homelessness. This is an expensive bill in a fiscally uncertain time. And while we all appreciate veteran employment programs, veteran unemployment is the lowest ever on record. A VET-TEC extension is nice to have, but with veterans experiencing homelessness and food insecurity, there is action on those programs that we must have. Now, as ranking member of this committee, I have the responsibility of weighing priorities and choosing between worthy policies that help veterans. I know the chairman and his colleagues on our committee share my goal of ending veteran homelessness. When we considered this legislation in our committee, I offered an amendment to this legislation to make permanent some basic authorities which lowered veteran homelessness by 11% during a public health emergency. This amendment cost only $6 million in mandatory spending. Last year, the chairman himself made it clear, and I quote the chairman, "No veteran should be without a place to call home. I am glad that the most recent estimate showed fewer veterans living in homeless shelters last year. That's why we must continue our work to ensure that the rubber is meeting the road and every veteran has access to safe, stable housing and the help they need to thrive," end quote. Chairman Bolster is correct. The work must continue. We must continue the ongoing work which has already helped so many veterans and can help so many more. The reason given for not moving this bill was that it implicates the Toxic Exposure Fund, or TEF. I understand the chairman is concerned about how the Congressional Budget Office scores bills with TEF implications. I am too, and I've spoken extensively on this. However, there has yet to be a solution proposed for the TEF that does not undermine its purpose, which is to protect funding for toxic exposed veterans and to acknowledge this as a cost of war. In light of this, I'm asking that as we come together and work on mutual priorities so that we can responsibly and equitably pass legislation using the limited offsets available to us. I think the chairman believes, as do I, that providing basic needs for homeless veterans deserves to be on that priority list. Therefore, I ask my colleague, the chairman, if he will commit to bringing Representative Sherfless McCormick's bill, H.R. 645, to the floor without delay. I ask, will the chairman commit to this, and I will yield for a response.
Gentleman from California reserves. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I was yielding for an answer.
My bad. My mistake. Always recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While I understand the concerns expressed by the minority, I would like to point out that the program has been a huge success in helping veterans gain meaningful employment. We have been very successful in recent years in reducing veterans' unemployment, and now is not the time for us to take our foot off the gas. Now, I believe a successful education program such as this one are one of the best ways to reduce veterans' homelessness. Mr. Speaker, I would also point out that the minority has had ample time and opportunity to express their concerns of legislation hearing on this bill.
Mr. Speaker,
They were also, I'm getting
Mr.
to my
Speaker.
answer. I'm getting to my answer.
Okay. I will yield for an answer. I'm waiting for the answer.
Okay. There was also given chance to submit markup and a full committee markup. And yet, the first time I've heard these concerns was late last week. Now, the bill, through regular order, as amended, was offered for the minority Representative McGarvey to reduce the length of time of the program. That amendment was accepted and is included in the bill. So the length of the program was subject to bipartisan agreement. Now, I recognize that the minority has valid concerns about spending and limited resources that we have worked with. The problem was made worse with the passage of the Toxic Exposure Fund, the PACT Act, that requires mandatory spending for many of the VA programs. Speaker, I'll repeat my plea that my friends on the other side of the aisle will join me in developing a resolution to the issue.
Mr.
However,
Speaker, I reclaim my time.
committed to addressing the
Speaker, I
veterans'
reclaim
homelessness.
my time.
Gentleman from California is recognized. You reclaim his time.
Mr. Speaker, I simply ask the gentleman whether he will work with us to bring Ms. Shirflis McCormick's bill to the floor, that is the question that I will yield for an answer. Will the gentleman work with us?
Thank you for yielding. I'll address the veterans homeless as I will address veterans homeless as I always have said I've been. It's very concerning to me. We currently are working on a package to address the issue, but I'm not going to pit one group of veterans against another. I would like my friends in the minority to work with me to develop legislation to address the veteran homeless in a bipartisan, fiscally responsible way over the next few months. So the answer is, yes, we will work with you, but we've got to actually sit down and work together to figure out the problem of the expense and knowing how it is and where it is that we make the investment that still balances. And that is the answer that I will give to the gentleman.
Mr. Speaker, I reclaiming my time, I am grateful that I hear some kernel of that they will work with us in a bipartisan way. What does worry me is that he mentioned over the next few months. I can maybe tolerate the next few months in terms of can we come to an agreement by the fall when the temperatures start to rise. But the hot summers in some parts of the country would require us to work much more expeditiously. These pandemic authorities expired. These pandemic authorities that expanded our ability to help veterans who are homeless expired on May 11th. And for the last 11 days, VA and its community partners have operated with fewer authorities and less funding to help homeless veterans. VA's ability to quickly bring a veteran in off the streets and to get them the services they need to put them on their way to stable permanent housing has been greatly diminished. Prior to the pandemic, we were maintaining the status quo. The number of veterans experiencing homelessness had remained basically stagnant year after year for quite some time. For every veteran housed, another veteran would fall into homelessness. During the pandemic, we approached the homelessness crisis head-on and with the urgency it has long deserved. It is incredible to me that we were able to reduce homelessness during COVID-19 by 11%. During the darkest days of that pandemic, VA actually reduced homelessness by 11%. It permanently housed over 40,000 veterans last year alone. We know these authorities accelerated VA's progress in ending veteran homelessness, and we can't lose that momentum. So I'm pleased to hear the chairman wants to work together to extend these authorities and get homeless veterans into housing. I just say let's prioritize H.R. 645 in the coming days, not the coming months, and I reserve.
Gentleman from California reserves. Gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will and we will work on this priority. You see, what we can do is chew gum and walk at the same time. And that means we can go ahead and not only work on homelessness, but also this bill, as important as it is. I appreciate the gentleman's concern, but believe me, our side of the aisle has just as much concern about our homeless veterans. With that, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentlewoman from Iowa, Representative Miller Meeks.
The gentlewoman from Iowa is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Chairman Bost, for yielding me time. As a 24-year Army veteran, I understand the importance of improving services for veterans as they transition to civilian life. VetTech is a pilot program that started under President Trump and was led by Speaker McCarthy. Let me repeat that. Vet Tech is a highly popular and successful program that was started under President Trump that allows eligible veterans to use GI-style benefits to attend innovative job training programs to prepare them for future employment in the technology industry. Through this program, veterans can get training in high-demand areas, including computer software, computer programming, data processing, information science, and media applications. In addition to which, employment may help prevent and treat homelessness. 62% employment, 65,000 years average salary. I'm grateful that my colleague, Representative Siscomani, has introduced this important piece of legislation, which will help grow our economy and help veterans get back to work. And as a physician, it is no small aside that the dignity of work and having a purpose in life may also help improve mental health, which may also help improve homelessness. The Vet Tech Authorization Act proves our commitment not only to maintaining funding levels, but increasing support for veterans. Last Congress, I led legislation to extend this important program, and I'm proud to support this legislation today. This program has been widely popular and successful, and this is exactly the type of taxpayer-funded program that we can all support. I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of this important legislation. Thank you, and I yield back.
The gentlewoman from Iowa yields, the gentleman from Illinois reserves, and the gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I have no further speakers, and I'm prepared to close, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves the balance of his time. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I would like to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Arizona, the sponsor of the main part of this bill, Representative Siscomani.
The gentleman from Arizona is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Chairman Boss, for yielding me time to talk about this important bill. I'm grateful that my bill, H.R. 1669, the Vet Tech Authorization Act, is being considered today on the House floor. This bipartisan effort would extend the invaluable program for our veterans, the Veteran Employment Through Technology Education Courses, or Vet Tech program. The Vet Tech pilot program allows eligible veterans to gain experience and training in high-demand tech jobs. Since the start of the Vet Tech program in 2019, introduced by Speaker McCarthy, over 12,000 veterans have completed the program in areas like computer programming, software development, data processing, and other in-demand careers. This is crucial to strengthening our American workforce while enabling our vets to have a clear shot at the American dream, a dream they have fought to protect for so many of us. Of the veterans that completed the program, roughly 62% are offered a job relating to their training they received with an average salary of around $65,000 a year. These results show that the program works, and by extending the program, we'll ensure our veterans will be able to participate in the program in the coming years. Not only is this program beneficial for our veterans, but it is crucial for our employers as well. We need a skilled workforce working in the tech industry, and our veterans are the perfect fit. I am proud to have partnered with Chairman Bost and Congressman Khanna on this legislation, and I look forward to working with my colleagues to ensure the men and women who served our country can continue to grow in the civilian workforce as well. I urge all my colleagues to vote yes on this bill today, and I yield back.
The gentleman from Arizona yields, the gentleman from Illinois reserves, and the gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I retract my comments about having no further speakers. I do have an additional speaker. At this time, I'd like to yield 1 minute to my good friend and colleague from my home state of California, who serves on the Armed Services and Oversight Committee, the gentleman from California, Mr. Khanna.
The gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Takano, for your leadership. And I'm glad that veterans can still bring this House together. I was honored to work with Speaker McCarthy back in 2017 on the pilot program, which has been a resounding success to provide veterans who serve this nation with the technology skills so they can get jobs when they're back in the United States. There was an 84% graduation rate. 12,000 veterans have been helped by this program, and the average salary was $65,000. These are the types of things that we need to do in the House, bringing the House together to actually improve veterans' lives. I appreciate Representative Siscomani's leadership, and I look forward to this program being permanent and hopefully expanded so veterans who serve our nation, who do the highest duty, have the opportunity to have secure livings when they're back at home. I yield back.
The gentleman from California yields. The gentleman from California.
I reserve.
The gentleman from California reserves, and the gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I'd like to yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Michigan, General Berkman.
The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for all the support for these bills that not only make life better for the veterans, but also for their families. I rise today in support of H.R. 1669, the TEC Authorization Act, which, as amended, includes the text of legislation I originally introduced as H.R. 234, Gerald's Law. Gerald's Law was drafted and introduced on behalf of Gerald Elliott, a U.S. Army veteran and a resident of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, as well as on behalf of his family and the thousands of other veterans like him. A lifelong Uper, Jerry was a member of the American Legion Post 363 and was an active volunteer with the UP Honor Flight and at the Iron Mountain VA Hospital. After a cancer diagnosis in 2019, Gerald received his care at the Iron Mountain VA. As the disease progressed and he was placed on hospice care, he decided to go home to enjoy his final days with his family. Following his death, Jerry's family discovered that even though he received hospice care through the VA, his family did not qualify for burial benefits after his death, and that's burial benefits for Jerry himself. That's because under current law, VA hospice care provided at home does not qualify as a death under VA care and is therefore not covered under the non-service connected burial and plot benefit. As a result of this quirk, if a veteran with a terminal illness wants the full burial benefit, they would be forced to die in a hospital or nursing home under the VA auspices instead of transferring to home hospice care. This is just I'm sure, a mistake and an injustice that is just unacceptable and unconscionable. No veteran should worry about losing VA benefits for their family when choosing to spend their final days in the comfort of their own home. Gerald's Law will address this by extending VA burial allowance eligibility to veterans whose passing occurs at home while receiving VA hospice care if they were previously receiving VA hospital or nursing home care. I am thankful for the House VA Committee for their work to assist the thousands of veterans and family members being denied benefits due to this legislative oversight. H.R. 1669, which includes Gerald's Law and other bipartisan common sense reforms, was approved unanimously by the committee in April. I urge every member of Congress, every member of the House, to support its passage on the House floor today, and I yield back.
The gentleman from Michigan yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have no more speakers, and I'm ready to close, and I reserve.
The gentleman from Illinois reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I have no further speakers, but let me just, before I reserve the balance of my time, I want to commend General Bergman for the section of the VET-TEC bill, which includes addressing this issue related to burials and the cost that the veteran's family has to bear. But I find it peculiar that the majority would take pains to include this legislation, which I have no quarrel with and support, but could not deal with and chose not to deal with the expiring authorities to deal with our homeless veterans. Americans care deeply about the homeless veterans in our country, are offended that we would have anybody who wore the uniform of the United States be homeless, so there are elements of this bill that came up in markup. They brought a bill to the floor, the VET-TEC bill, which includes many elements, but they specifically chose to leave out addressing the expiring authorities that we have used to bring down homelessness by 11%. I'm afraid we're going to lose the momentum. I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from California reserves. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, one thing that needs to be very, very clear, the Berkman amendment, the Berkman bill, does not have a TEF issue. That's a toxic exposure fund issue. That's where we have the concerns are. I have no more speakers, but I'm ready to close. But with that, I'll yield back the balance of my time. Or not, I will reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Illinois reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I realize the chairman has had, and all of us in the veteran space have had our differences with the way the CBO scores the TEF. But I would assert that we cannot use that as an excuse for why we don't address veteran homelessness. Look, this bill is nearly the expansion of the Vet Tech as a program is to the tune of nearly a $500 million, $413 million. At a time when my colleagues on the other side are looking to make draconian cuts to the non-defense side of the ledger, which veterans do fall within. They are expanding a program that addresses veteran employment at a time when veteran employment is at its lowest. I ask, and what I want to compare is the $6 million compared to the near $500 million that the Republicans want to expand this program by. I, too, stand behind veteran employment programs, and effective ones at that. But should we be expanding it and authorizing for 5 years this program, Vet Tech, when we're allowing a $6 million program to care for homeless veterans, to get them off the streets? Should we be allowing that to expire? It's a rather rich situation that my colleagues want to expand spending, spend more on a program whose urgency is really in question, because the Biden economy, as I've explained, has brought veteran unemployment to its lowest levels ever. But they want to expand spending in that program by an enormous amount, but yet they want to eliminate $6 million in authorizations to take care of our homeless veterans. This makes no sense at all to me. And with that, I support the chairman's bill, but I hope he will work with us to solve this problem in a matter of days, not months. And I yield back.
The gentleman from California yields back. The gentleman from Illinois is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I am going to say a couple things that I've said on this House floor before, and I'm going to say them again. The gentleman referred to us cutting veterans issues. Veterans, actually, we're increasing over the president's budget. We'll get more into that later this week in committee. But let me also say this. Speaker, I'll repeat my plea right now, that our friends on the other side of the aisle will join me in developing a solution to an issue that he has decided is not anything more than a political ploy to try to say words that we were going to cut benefits by straightening this problem out. And we are not. We will not. Let me say this again on this floor. Veterans are not being cut, period. This is a good piece of legislation. It's bipartisan. I would encourage all of the people on our side of the aisle and on both sides of the aisle to support this legislation, and with that, I yield back.
The gentleman from Illinois yields back.